Okay, so this short video is just going to deal with determining the melting point of aspirin using the Mel-Temp apparatus. So this is the Mel-Temp apparatus. You can see I have everything labeled. This controls the voltage, which in turn controls the temperature. The Mel-Temp has a thermometer in it that you can use to determine the temperature. You can watch the thermometer as the temperature increases. Um, Here's your sample. Your sample goes here, and here's the observation window. When you look in that window, you're going to see 3 slots. Each one of those slots can contain a sample. So we're going to share the Mel-Temps today. That means that one Mel-Temp, 3 groups can use one Mel-Temp because each slot can hold one sample. All right. And the way you use this, once you put your sample in and have it set to the right temperature, you look through the observation window. You observe 2 temperatures. Number 1, you observe the temperature that it starts melting, and then you observe the temperature where it's completely melted. And that range is going to be your melting range for this particular compound. All right, so to make your sample, you take the capillary tube, the open end, and you just kind of put it down into the sample, twist it a little bit to get some sample in the tip, and then you turn it over, and the closed end is here. All right, and then you just tap it on the bench top, and you keep tapping it until the sample goes to the bottom. You only need about 1 centimeter of material. It's very simple, but if you have problems with this tomorrow, I'll help you with it. When you're heating your sample, so you start out by turning the Mel-Temp dial to about 5. That's going to increase the temperature probably by about 10 degrees per minute. You start out like that. It's important to really watch the thermometer because the Mel-Temp can heat up pretty fast. When you get about 20 degrees away from your expected melting point, in this case we're melting aspirin, so that means that you need to know the melting point for aspirin, pure aspirin. When you get about 20 degrees below the melting point, you're going to turn the dial down. And the reason for that is the closer you get to your melting point, the slower you want the temperature to increase. All right, so if you look on this chart here, I'm going to have you look up the melting point for aspirin. That way you can kind of look at where the melting point is here, and then look for a spot on the red line that corresponds to that. All right, the red line corresponds to 1 degree per minute, and then the blue line corresponds to 10 degrees per minute. So you need to look up the melting point for aspirin, and then based on this plot, determine where you should turn the dial to. I don't want to tell you that because that's something that I want you to be able to look up on your own and be ready to do on tomorrow. All right, so you're going to have to do 2 trials. You're going to do your crude twice. You're going to do your pure aspirin twice. So after the sample is done, you're going to let the Mel-Temp cool down to about 20 degrees below where it is. So whatever your melting point is, just turn the dial down to 1 and let it cool down about 20 degrees, and then from there you can turn it back to the previous setting and increase the temperature again by 1 degree per minute until you get to your melting point. And so your second trial, you're just going to repeat the same process. So what you have to do for lab tomorrow is, number 1, look up the melting point for aspirin. And then the second thing you need to do is to go back to the plot, which is here on this slide, and figure out where you're going to set the dial after the temperature reaches 20 degrees below the melting point for your aspirin. All right, so if you have any questions, feel free to email me. As always, if you have any questions, you can tweet, you can email, or you can drop by my office. Peace.